Toy Story 5's entire existence has been a pretty big point of contention online, but we actually just got a bunch of brand new major plot details out of Annecy, and since, people are super normal about Toy Story, there are a lot of thoughts. I actually have some myself. Plus, there is also a good chunk of other Pixar news, and I'm happy to say that it looks like originals are still on the menu in the upcoming few years, so that's exciting. Let's talk about all of it. Now, obviously, the entire decision to make Toy Story 5 has largely been met with disdain, I would say. From just about everyone, nobody really wanted another Toy Story. It was not a popular decision at all. For me, it was in large part due to the way it was unveiled. It was actually unveiled simultaneously with Frozen 3 and Zootopia 2 by Bob Iger of all people, which to me just screamed, oh, we are in trouble. We have movies that have been flopping. We need to make some hits and make some money. It just felt so money forward in its announcement and in its conception. People already think that Toy Story 4 was a cash grab, but they're actually really super wrong about that. Toy Story 4 had been in the works since almost immediately after Toy Story 3. It was an idea that they were inspired by, a story that they wanted to tell, and they worked for like 10 years to make sure they locked in that idea and got it right. It was not rushed into production. It was not something that was just thrown out there to make money. That was clearly an idea that they were inspired by and a story they wanted to tell, regardless of what you think of the product. But even fans of Toy Story 4 were confused by Toy Story 5's announcement. It felt like, especially after Toy Story 4 with Woody leaving the gang, how could you possibly follow that up in a satisfying and non-contrived way? Well, we actually do have some answers. We'll go over those in a minute. The one thing that has really kept me interested in Toy Story 5 is the fact that Andrew Stanton is directing. Now, Andrew Stanton is one of Pixar's best directors. He did Finding Nemo, he did WALL-E, he's won Oscars for both of those films. He was also a big part of the writing team for all 4 of the other Toy Story movies, so it's kind of cool for him to take the reins for this 5th and hopefully final Toy Story. But even with Stanton at the helm, I have been very skeptical of Toy Story 5 as an idea, even as someone who likes Toy Story 4. But I do have to say that some of the stuff we've gotten news of for Toy Story 5 out of Annecy is pretty interesting. I kind of love some of this. Let's talk about it. They got to see the opening sequence of Toy Story 5, and I gotta say, I think Stanton might be cooking here, because this is pretty cool. Here's a description of the opening sequence. The opening shot involves a Buzz Lightyear opening his eyes on a beach. He's groggy and not sure where he is. The audience also isn't sure if this is the Buzz we know or someone else. As he scans the beach, he sees a number of Buzz Lightyear toys still in their sealed boxes, and a huge shipping container partly opened. He walks over and wakes up the sleeping Buzz Lightyears on the beach, and then goes into the container and does the same to the dozens inside. It then cuts to all the Buzz Lightyears sitting around a makeshift campfire at night. There are at least 50, maybe more. All of what we've seen so far features no dialogue, just sounds, and we also learn they're on an island in the middle of nowhere. A Buzz looks at the starry night. He sees a bright star and starts saying star, while another Buzz starts saying command. This happens a few times until we hear all the Buzz Lightyears saying star command. In the next scene, the Buzz Lightyears have assembled a raft of some sort and are chanting star command and attempting to leave the island. Then the Toy Story 5 logo appears. Sorry to admit this, but I think that rules. I think that's a really awesome opening sequence. I love that they're always finding ways to get dumb, ignorant Buzz back in the picture. And also the fact that this is going to be mostly told visually without any dialogue in this opening. I think this is probably going to be a really dope sequence, regardless of how the rest of the movie turns out. Then we got some news about the villain and main premise for Toy Story 5, and this is kind of what I was expecting out of this kind of a story, with a few surprises. We had previously learned this from an image, I believe, but apparently Bonnie's tablet lily pad is the villain. Now, I am not surprised at all by this premise. They've already dabbled in the way video games have sort of pseudo-replaced toys in some of these Toy Story movies and shorts. Obviously, with iPad kids being a thing these days, it makes a lot of sense to draw the comparison here to old school toys versus new school tech. Maybe it's a little too obvious. I think people were hoping for more of a premise than just Bonnie get iPad, but I do think that there is a little bit more going on here than it feels like. Apparently the premise here is that the lily pad wants to separate Bonnie from her toys because she wants to make her more social. Interestingly, this movie is now going to focus a little bit more on Jessie, who is in charge of Bonnie's toys. She actually decides that the toys need help with this and tries to find a way to get Woody to come back to help them. So I do think it's smart to go into this old school toy toys versus tech angle, and I also think it's smart to focus on Jessie. There seems to be some people, including whoever wrote this Screen Rant article, that are confused as to why Jessie is the leader and Buzz isn't the leader, and I'd say all you have to do is watch Toy Story 4 to figure that out. Jessie was clearly Bonnie's favorite toy. She even took the sheriff badge off of Woody and put it on Jessie and primarily played with Jessie during playtime, and then at the end of the movie, we literally see Woody give Jessie the sheriff badge. It like truly could not be more explicit, and I actually really love that Jessie's going to get a spotlight here because Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story movie, and I was always a little disappointed that Jessie kind of got sidelined in each of the movies after Toy Story 2. She did get a little bit of a focus in the Toy Story of Terror, which was a pretty great television special, and that one really focused on her anxiety and fears that came out of Toy Story 2 with her fears of being packed away and the trauma that came with that. And I hope that this movie also leans into that. But to me, it feels like this is going to be a story about Jessie as a leader. Jessie, who previously always had Woody as a safety net, as a support system, is now trying to lead these toys in Bonnie's room and is faced with her first real piece of adversity, which is the lily pad. And of course, this being her first real rodeo as leader, she is going to feel insecure about this and feel like she needs to go get Woody's help. And I assume that this story is going to be about Jessie learning how to become a leader herself without leaning on the support of someone like Woody. I do think the specifics of how they get Woody back in the picture are going to make a big difference in terms of how contrived I feel this plot is. There's hopefully some kind of reasonable story decision that leads to them being able to find Woody. But regardless, I think this could be a lot worse in terms of bringing Woody back into the picture. It's a character-focused problem with Jessie's insecurities and fears as the new leader, feeling like she needs to call back on the previous leader. It doesn't feel like it's just trying to undo the ending of Toy Story 4. It's actually exploring something new with another character and giving her more of a spotlight. I think that's a good and admirable idea for this premise. Still not convinced this movie needs to exist, but I am willing to give it a shot. The opening sequence they describe here sounds great. I genuinely think that's awesome. And I think the rest of the plot, while maybe not fully having won me over, has potential. In terms of other Pixar news, we got a brand new movie announcement, one that I'm probably most excited about. Coming to theaters in 2027 is Disney and Pixar's Gateau. From Luca director Enrico Casarosa, the film returns to Italy following a black cat named Nero. Indebted to a feline mob boss, Nero finds himself forced to forge an unexpected friendship that may finally lead him to his purpose. This is going to have a hand-painted style of animation, and I'm pretty stoked for this all around. I think Luca is one of the best Pixar movies of the last decade. I'm really excited to see anything that director does. I love the Italy setting. I love cats. I love the idea of a feline mob boss. This all sounds awesome to me. And I'm glad that Pixar is going to finally go in the direction of stylization with their animation. I feel like some people felt like their style was getting a little stale, even if they've differentiated in their character models a little bit. But I'm excited for them to sort of catch up and do something a little more unique with the art style than just the traditional Pixar style. Pete Docter apparently also showcased new footage from the upcoming film Hoppers, and this is another one that I think sounds really fun. It's directed by Daniel Chong, who created We Bare Bears, and the film centers around animal lover Mabel that places her consciousness into a robotic beaver to protect her local pond from a highway construction project. They describe this movie as like Avatar meets Mission Impossible, says Pete Docter. It's an action-adventure comedy spy thriller where the humor, the heart, and the adventure leap from the screen in surprising ways. I do think that kind of fits. It's like the idea of someone going undercover as a beaver in order to help them and be more like them, and that's kind of Avatar-like, right? Like Jake Sully goes undercover as a Na'vi to learn their ways, and he's trying to help them, but is, maybe mistaken for someone who is infiltrating and trying to do them harm. I think there's a lot of potential here. It sounds really fun. Daniel Chong is cool. We Bare Bears is cool. I'm pretty excited for this one. I'm sure there are people already complaining that this is too much like Over the Hedge, but real ones know that Over the Hedge was already a ripoff of Pom Poko. I think there's room for all of these kinds of stories here. This is a common issue in nature. It's human interference destroying animal habitats and leading them to have to go elsewhere or just die out. So it makes sense that there's a few movies about this leading back to the 90s, which also, if you haven't seen Pom Poko, check it out. It's great. They showed a clip of this at Annecy. It features the voices of John Hamm, Bobby Moynihan, and Piper Curda. Like that cast a lot. Excited to see it. And they also showed a 27-minute preview for Ilio, which is about to come out this week, I believe. It's presented by the directors Madeline Sharafian, Domi Shi, and producer Mary Alice Drum. Early reactions are very positive, being called one of Pixar's best films, which is surprising to me, saying it has a highly emotional opening. Variety apparently described that audiences went from tears to joy, and the positive reviews have come in as the embargo lifted. It opened at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has risen to 83 as of the time I am recording this. We'll see where it lands. I would bet it probably sits around there in the end. I bet 80% is pretty safe. And I hope it's good, and I hope it makes money, because I really want Pixar to continue to invest in originals and not just feel like they have to rely on the sequels that are going to make them $2 billion like Inside Out 2. And that's all I've got for you. What do you guys think about Toy Story 2, about Gateau, about Elio, about Hoppers, about everything coming out for Pixar in the near future? I'm pretty curious. I'll say that. I'm curious. I'm excited about Hoppers and Gateau. Hopefully none of this is bad. I hope none of this is bad. That's my take. Okay, bye.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.